Mr. President.
The senator from Oklahoma.
Yeah, Mr. President, I will stay within the time given me. We have all had to reduce our times on this side. We have many who want to speak. Let me just cover a couple of things and respond to some statements that were made by the chairman of the Armed Services Committee. First of all, I was around in 1993. Actually, it was the last year that I was serving in the House. I was on the House Armed Services Committee, and I remember very well when the gay lobby started becoming active at that time. It was during the Clinton administration. They said, we want to change the policy. And that's why they went through this thing called Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which allows people to serve regardless of what their conditions are, their preferences are, but they don't talk about it. They don't use the military as a forum to advance their liberal agenda. And it seemed to work. In the law, and that's still the law today, Section 571 reads, this was passed in 1993, 17 years ago. The presence in the armed services of persons who demonstrate a propensity or intent to engage in homosexual acts would create an unacceptable risk to the high standards of morale, good order, and discipline and unit cohesion that are essential to the military. So I was one of them who applauded Secretary Gates. This is back on February 10th, when he said, we're not going to be doing anything to change this until we study it, and most importantly, and this is the whole issue right here, I believe, we hear from those in the field. We hear from the troops in the field. These are the guys who've gone through this. They understand what it's all about, and they have been told that they would be heard from. That's the whole idea. And we would not do anything until December 1st when all the results were in. Well, I was a product of the United States Army. I was served proudly in the United States Army, and I can tell you right now there are some reasons in the military that why this wouldn't work. Put the first chart up. I think Senator McCain covered the statements that were made by the service chiefs, but they're worth looking at again. It's very significant that these service chiefs were outspoken in their opposition to changing this policy or to repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It's difficult for a general in the services to go against the president. I remember in 1998 when General John Jumper was strong enough to stand up and say publicly what was happening during the Clinton administration in terms of the downsizing of the military. It took a lot of courage. But I think the other thing that is totally consistent, put up the other one, a lot of things have been said about Secretary Gates and Admiral Mullen. Now, they're the two that are going to be the most instrumental in this thing. But here's what their philosophy was. This is a statement. I'm going to read it. I want everyone to listen carefully. This is from the Secretary of Defense, Gates, and Admiral Mullen, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They said jointly, we believe in the strongest possible terms that the department must, prior to any legislative action, be allowed the opportunity to conduct a thorough, objective, and systematic assessment of the impact of such policy change. What they're talking about is the study that we said that was going to take place. Then wait a minute, something happened. Three things happened 1 month later. This statement was made on April 28th. 1 month later, on May 27th, three things happened. What are those three things? First of all, Gates and Mullen agreed to this compromise, and they totally reversed their position of 1 month before. Now, the senator, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee was talking about their position. This was their position, and yet they reversed it. At the same time, on that same day, May 27th, the House voted to repeal the Don't Ask, Don't Tell. There are a couple conditions there, and the Senate did the same thing. With one exception, one senator in the Senate Armed Services Committee, it was right down party lines. In other words, every Republican senator but one opposed this idea of repealing this thing without going through the study. The study is the critical thing here. We have to go through the study before we would be in a position to know what those in the field wanted to do. I think this is really critical here because it's not a matter of what you want to do with this, but it's a matter of hearing from the troops in the field. Now put up the next one here. The people are saying, well, don't worry about it. The senator from Michigan just said, don't worry about it because we're going to hear. First of all, it has to be certified that there's no negative impact on readiness. It's going to be certified by Mullen and Gates and the president. But wait a minute, certified? They've already made up their minds. Look, here's the most important. Admiral Mullen said, Mr. Chairman, speaking to myself, it is my personal belief that allowing gays and lesbians to serve openly would be the right thing to do. Now, he's the one who's supposed to certify this. Well, he's already certified it. It's right here. And when they say that it's after 60 days after the 1st of December, the certification has to take place, it's already happened. Secretary Gates, I fully support the President's decision. The question before us is not whether the military prepares to make this change, but how we best prepare for it. There you have it. Both of them are saying the same thing. They're saying, well, we've already made up our mind. They're the ones certifying, and the third party, of course, is the President. And the President, his position is very well known where he was on that issue. So I think this whole thing is so phony when they talk about the certification. But the reason I want to get as much as I can in a limited 10 minutes is to let you know that's not the only thing that happened on May 27th. I call May 27th Black Thursday because not only did they vote to repeal the policy that's worked so well for the last 17 years in terms of gays in the military, but they also passed an abortion amendment that allows abortions in military hospitals. Now, real quickly, this has been been changed for many years. In 1970, an executive order allowed abortions in DOD hospitals. In 1984, Bob Dornan, remember B1 Bob? A lot of us remember him. He changed it and tried to limit the abortions in government hospitals. 1988, the DOD policy barred abortions from military facilities. President Clinton changed that and relaxed the laws. Then in 1996, the authorization bill reversed Clinton, and therefore we're not going to be able to have, they were not going to have abortions in military hospitals. Now, that's the law as it is today. But an amendment, we haven't even talked about this amendment. An amendment is going to open up the military hospitals for abortions. I had the honor of addressing this values summit last Friday. And I can tell you right now, the people there, when they heard about all of this that was in this bill, they were pretty shocked. And the question came up is, why is it that we keep hearing over and over again what it is? Let's see, you want to have the next chart up there. What it is in this bill. Why are they so anxious to get this thing on the floor where we're not going to be able to have amendments? We all know what the rules are around here. And always before, to my knowledge, since when I first came to Congress, this is the first time that we will have an authorization bill up where we didn't have a chance to amend it, didn't have a chance to offer bills. Normally, there are some 100 or so amendments. A lot of them are agreed to, and our positions are heard. Not this time. And I think the fact that they would use, first of all, I think it's a political mistake. It's a dumb thing to do, to try to use the Defense Authorization Bill in times of war to advance a liberal agenda. And what is that liberal agenda? The liberal agenda is to have open gays serving in the military. It's taxpayer-funded abortions in our military hospital and amnesty for illegals. I think that they're making a mistake. I do believe, I agree with the senator from Arizona, that it's totally political. It's all set up for the November 2nd election, and I can assure you that all of America is watching, and they don't think that the Defense Authorization Bill in times of war is the appropriate thing to do to advance a far-left liberal agenda. Open gay policy in the military, taxpayer-funded abortions, and amnesty for illegals. With that, I've used my 10 minutes, and I yield the floor.